the people that are worried about losing TikTok, or for the people who feel almost threatened by it because of our government taking this action, focusing on this one venue, what would you say to them as far as looking ahead?
Several things. In America so far, when we ban Pornhub, you can use a VPN to bounce into another place and see Pornhub. I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to use VPNs to still see TikTok if it's banned, because it will still be present in Canada or Mexico or other places. And then you have a whole bunch of expats that go down to the Mexican TikTok or the Canadian TikTok and whatever. It doesn't matter. So a complete ban is impossible. I think, that's a little far-fetched. But I think people have to realize that I agree with the idea that of the youth saying this is kind of silly. It is silly. It's retaliatory. But what people have to appreciate in geopolitical politics is that if you give an inch, other countries take a yard. And China basically asked America 30 years ago to come into the country and invest a lot of money. And will you please allow us to build your products? And we said yes. And then China made a rule that we had to give them 50% of the technological patents that we were building so that they could be prosperous later. And we agreed to that. So we built China by helping China with all of this. So it's very hard for us to be now 30 years later into this relationship and having China basically say, we're going to bury you. Because
Absolutely.
Their whole basis of how they got to TikTok is based on American know-how. And so when America's being kicked out and our social media is not allowed, I want to fight back. That is not based on a emotional argument. This is not based on a TikTok love or is TikTok bad or any of that. It's to do with taking TikTok from China hurts them enough to make them aware that they got to do something fair, which is allow us to have our apps in China. That's my opinion.
I agree with that. Do you think there are other apps we should be more concerned about, or other technologies that are probably more problematic than TikTok?
Well, as I have my iPad right in front of me, my notes today, one of the things I was looking at is, so let me say this. When you go on social media, or any of you, and you become an influencer and you start to gain traction after 250,000 people, and you start to grow into 500,000, and then you get to 1 million, what you have to realize is you are actually in the old cable system, of cable television. You're actually scoring the same amount of hits that a cable channel would score to be considered doing well. If a cable channel is doing 500,000, it was really doing well. I'm not talking about the big channels. I'm talking about the standard channel. If you had 300 channels, if you got 300,000 people, that's a good day. So my point to everyone is that what influencers forget is that when you start to influence more than a football stadium's worth of people at one time, you start to get scrutinized by more people. And the more people that you get scrutinized, eventually the more people you will find dislike what you're doing. It's just natural. It's actually, unfortunately, statistics. So ultimately, what you have to realize is, to all of you young creators, is that the more you expose yourself, the more likely something's going to go wrong. So when you're asking what app's going to get you into trouble, well, the truth is any one of them. And more importantly, it is how foolish are you to post your extreme content that could get you into trouble. And if you do choose to post extreme content that could get you into trouble, and both Kim and I know about that because we've done it, then you also have to be willing to face the consequences of that. And I think today people are really not understanding that the two factors in social media that I can't get over is what you post today will be there tomorrow and indefinitely into the future. That is something that no human really understands. How often have you been angry and you've said something you regret? But in social media, you not only said it and you regret it, but you can never take it away. So my biggest problem with TikTok is that people seem to be drunk when they're using TikTok. And I don't mean physically drunk. They just seem to be drunk on the idea we can do anything on TikTok. This is the free place. Let's go. Party time. There's only one problem. Eventually, when you're trying to get a job, or eventually when people are trying to decide if they want to do business with you, they're going to look at all those posts, and then your judgment day comes. And that's why those platforms to me are evil, because most people are not aware of the damage they're doing just with the posting they do at a party.
But is that the platform's fault, or is that our responsibility?
It's our responsibility.
I agree.
And that's what we're trying to teach. I mean, that's what you Absolutely. And I are doing. To wrap up the TikTok controversy, this is my wrap up. This is, the message to everyone. TikTok is not dangerous. If TikTok is dangerous, then Instagram, Meta, and all other social media platforms are equally as dangerous. But TikTok is behind a regime, behind a government that has censored all of our social media platforms. And as far as I'm concerned, unless they're willing to open up China to American social media, I do not want to see their very best be able to have a platform in our country and us not have any platforms in their country. So, from my perspective, this is not a ban on TikTok because TikTok is bad. This is really a ban on the CCP being able to ban everything American, and yet we are willing to be fair and let anything Chinese into our country. At some point, you have to say no. And I think this is a time for us to say no. However, if I was the government, my message would be totally different than our government. It would be something like this. Look, guys, I want to have TikTok in our country, and I want China and America to get along. So you let our social media on your platforms uncensored. We'll let your platforms on ours uncensored, and that will allow transparency, and let's let whatever political system win. Because with transparency, there can also be cooperation and understanding. So to me, if I was going to solve this problem, I would go to China and say, let me have X, let me have Meta, let me have Facebook, and you can have your TikTok and whatever other platforms you would like. And I think that's fair. What do you guys think?